안녕하세요, 이상우입니다. 오늘은 제가 여기 애틀란타 다운타운 근처에 예술 하시는 분 집에 찾아왔습니다. 안에서 엄청나게 그림도 그리시고 어떤 뭘 만들기도 하고 스튜디오에 대한 부심도 있으신 분이고 그래서 한번 찾아서 왔습니다. 들어가서 구경 좀 하시죠.
Well, I have been in the studio for about 22 years now. It's getting sort of full, mostly with paintings, but I have an affinity to collect things, skulls, other people's work. Used to have a studio downtown Atlanta, had a few of those, but in the end, with all the development of the city, I found myself looking for a place where I could actually establish some roots and be grounded for a longer period of time. And as it turns out, it was cheaper to buy a small house, which is just my studio. And it was pretty empty when I started, and it's getting pretty full now. If you can look on a beam that's in my studio, you'll see everything from goats to cows, to deer, to pelicans, to dolphins, to pufferfish, to pigs. I'm just sort of drawn to that. When I was a student, I used to draw skulls, and it's just sort of started me on my habit of collecting things. So I have this system where I can raise the paintings up and down, so I can always paint what I'm doing while I'm standing up. And as I make the painting, I can see the entire painting from here. I mix my paints here. So I have oils on this side, acrylics on that side. The sink and kitchen area, it's all set up for painting. So the sink area is here, so I can build my big stretchers, and I have all the big power tools I need at those places. I'd like to show you one thing that very few people see. I scuba dive a lot still. If you look at fish on a reef, they all look the same, but in reality, they're all individuals, and birds that fly are the same. They all have individual personalities and individual physical traits. So my paintings start from a stencil where they're all the same. And when I come in to apply the paint, each one takes on a personality, a life of its own. There may be hundreds of things in here. So this is one of those fish skeletons that you saw in the fish line painting. Everything I've painted over the years in different scales kind of exists here. I'll show you one of my favorite places in the studio. This is the bathroom. And again, it keeps getting added to all the time. Everything here has a meaning to it too. So it's something that I find and I bring because it needs to be in my studio. And that's pretty much my studio. Most of my work is fairly large scale. I do work with small things as well, works on paper, some paintings on panel. I've always been drawn to the power of that kind of painting because it allows the viewer to walk inside my work and become part of it. I believe a painting isn't something you look at, but rather a painting is something you experience. With my work, I try to give the viewer exactly what I want him or her to see. I like to think of my work as optimistic, figurative painting. I have a lot of work that goes to children's hospitals and places like that. Children's innocence completes the paintings in ways I can no longer do. I like working with kids because there's something pure about how they perceive the world. Grass doesn't have to be green and sky doesn't have to be blue. They are magical, magical people when it comes to making art. This painting is fish line, and a couple of years ago I started to put words into my paintings, and indeed they became the title of a lot of the work. So for me, this is a very, very simple painting. Most of my work tends to be a little more complex. So I I tried to keep things as very thin as possible, not too much layering in the painting. The images of the fish skeletons were kind of natural for me. I love having bones around. This is an earlier painting. It was from a trip I made to China, and I was looking down at a koi pond at night, and the moon came up and reflected in it. I was thinking about the traffic in Guangzhou and also Shanghai. And when I returned to the States, but I wanted to do a painting about that amazing traffic that you encounter in China. So the fish became sort of symbolic of that. The way they swirl and move, and the reflection of the moon kind of suggested the way people drove in Guangzhou, for example, or Shanghai. This is one of the landscape pieces. And again, the words are a little harder to see. It says lagoon. A painting done from recollection of a trip I made to Costa Rica. The sun image and moon image are in almost all of my paintings now. This is one called Cloud Forest. And I'm not sure if you can see the little skeletons with the beating hearts. It's also influenced by my travels to the Yucatan and Central America. And the same with nightbirds. It's sort of a darker painting, but yet, you know, the skeletons have beating hearts and the temples are there. I have been asked to discuss where everything might be headed. I'm not sure I can give you a definitive answer about where I see myself in the future. I don't think I've ever done a painting that ended up. I think that, like my paintings, it's just a matter of where maybe every day will take me and see what opportunities avail themselves. I am pretty confident it will involve making things, and I am not ready to clean my brushes and kind of walk away from that yet. I'm always pleasantly surprised when I find myself in the studio, which I am every day, and it never gets tired. It's not old. There's always something new and fresh, and I think it's because of the nature of how I go about my painting.